Go.
An ancient world traveler, Ibn Battuta, from his book, The Travels of Ibn Battuta, once said, "Traveling, it leaves you speechless and then turns you into a storyteller. I have not been many places in the world just yet, but I would like to share this opportunity of a lifetime I was graced with in April of this year. This world has numerous places filled with wonders and history that it is impossible to not share my experiences with people that do not have the opportunity to speculate on these marvels. First off, this trip was 2 years in the making by one of my high school teachers. He rounded up about 60 of us students, parents, and teachers to go on this travel with him. Some of these classmates I didn't know very well, or even at all, but by the end of the 8 days, we bonded, making a big dysfunctional travel family. Adventuring with these people was just as impacting as seeing the beautiful speculations of London and Paris. As much as I would like to reminisce on my whole week in Europe with you, I cannot, because the story would be too extensive and I doubt anyone would pay attention that long. Instead, I'm going to highlight one of my favorite days in London, well, on the outskirts of London. On our third day in London was an extra excursion of the trip that almost everyone signed up for, which was going to Stonehenge. Personally, the reason I wanted to take this extra part of the scheduled trip is because I didn't really know much about the structure and I was so curious to visit the rocks. The day we headed to Stonehenge started very early in the morning, breakfast at around 7:30 a.m., and then a 2-hour bus ride around 8 a.m. to Salisbury, England, where Stonehenge is located. On our bus tour was a tour guide that talked with us about the wonder that is Stonehenge and how no one really knows of its origin or purpose. She said that even in the early years of its origination, people from all over would come to the rocks, but not particularly clear why. One of the most interesting thoughts that our tour guide planted with us is that everyone on that bus was probably not the first in our genetic history to visit Stonehenge, especially if our ancestors were in England. On the drive to the structure were pastures of sheep and farmland, but most curiously were humps everywhere. They weren't just hills, though, they were burial grounds. When we pulled up to the grounds, it was very spread out and not crowded, opposing other tourist attractions. There was a building with a gift shop inside and cafe with houses behind it, such as Native American teepees that represented what some of the people that might have traveled to Stonehenge might have lived in. On the side of the building was a little bus stop that took visitors to the actual walking trail around Stonehenge. When we first got to the rocks, it was breathtaking and unexpected because it was so large and naturally beautiful. Unfortunately, we couldn't go straight to the rocks because since the structure is so ancient, the grounds around it are very fragile. Holding those rocks for centuries, it might possibly fall, and many tourists were to step. Since the structure is so ancient, the grounds around it are very fragile. Holding these rocks for centuries, and so it might possibly fall as tourists were to step around the rocks. Instead, we walked around the rope trail that surrounded the rocks, taking pictures and talking about how spectacular this really was. When we finished walking around the rocks, we visited the gift shop, and I ended up getting a shirt that says Stonehenge Rocks, which is my absolute favorite from my trip to Europe. This trip affected the outlook I had on the world. I began to see the beauty all around me, and not just in big cities as London and Paris, but just in small town Owensboro, Kentucky. I've taught myself that if I look around with an open mind, I can find marvelous sights anywhere. Also, going on this trip gave me a desire to want to learn more about the places I've been and the history that surrounds them. I'm eager to take European history class later in my college career because I love to know more about the cities. I would say that this is a vivid memory because it was a way for me to find myself by becoming to the realization that I'm passionate about traveling because all of the beauty that there is out there to explore. Although this trip was just 2 months ago, I can guarantee that as of right now, it is one of the events that will stay with me for a lifetime because of all the bonds we made as a travel group along enjoying everything London and Paris had to offer us. These sights were the most magnificent ones I've ever seen, and I never imagined that I could fly across the Atlantic and visit these places with such great history, beauty, and mystery. Those 8 days in Europe were the most excitement I've ever had and would love to relive it. It impacted me the way that I never thought traveling would, but it made me realize there are so many stunning sights, and I don't want to leave this world without seeing the majority of them. Life is just too short to not take the opportunity to step out into the world and learn from the experiences and people that you could possibly meet. If you change someone's perspective of life like it has mine, it's never too late to discover and go find yourself.